Yeah, so it's a great question. In terms of things I'm going to be paying attention to the most while I'm at Dreamforce, from our perspective at UpperEdge, right? We want to pay attention to the things that matter most to Salesforce, but how they're positioning why it should matter to their customers, right? It's in that margin, it's in that nuance that becomes most important. So for example, if you're listening to the keynote speech, whether it's from the product team, so the Sales Cloud keynote, or it's the overall keynote by Benioff, if they spend a lot of time talking about Lightning Cloud, or if they talk about the Lightning platform or Einstein, which most likely they're going to spend a lot of time doing, it indicates to us that what's about to come, specifically if there's a renewal coming up, is you're going to increase pressure, right? While you're at Dreamforce, there's going to be increased pressure to push you into those breakout sessions around those products. The other thing is, what are they starting to condition around financials, right? A lot of times at Dreamforce, although they don't go into full financials, they're going to start talking about where we envision ourselves to be, right? That $22 billion number that we keep hearing. Are they going to reinforce that? Are they going to talk about how they're going to get there? Are they going to put more markers out there? And that's really critical, because clearly, as you know what they're focused on or where they want to grow, that helps us inform our client base on how to use that effectively during your negotiations. And the last thing that we're going to pay attention to, because it's important, is where are customers of Salesforce spending their time, right? So are they spending their time actively listening about Einstein analytics? Are they spending their time on IoT? Are our clients asking us or talking to us while we're there about, hey, what do you think about? That will give us a line of sight into what we know Salesforce is learning what matters to them. What do I mean by that? If Salesforce leaves the conference with a belief that there's certain things that just didn't land, they just didn't resonate the way they hoped they would. When we are helping organizations negotiate deals, and there happens to be a product in their portfolio that that particular client is interested in, and we know that they didn't get the traction, that means it's more valuable for them to close that deal for that product, because they know that they have a lot more upswing. And if you represent an opportunity to drop in a product that they didn't have a lot of success on, that increases your leverage. So it's financials, right? We're paying attention to what they're talking about. What products are they focusing on? And then it's, what are the customers? What are the clients? What are they focusing on? Any customer that's preparing to go to Dreamforce and they want to do it well, there's a few things they need to focus on. There's a few things that they need to do well in advance of the actual conference, which is not that far from now. So if they haven't done it, they need to do it soon. The first thing is, they should really try to understand what are the things that they're looking to accomplish. And so if you have multiple people going to Dreamforce, the best approach is to divide and conquer. There's 2,700 sessions as of right now. There's going to be over 150 to 170,000 people there. It's spread out over a very large map or landscape. So you need to really figure out who's going where, what time the events. But here's the problem. Salesforce right now has not even given the time or the location of any of their breakout sessions. You cannot even register for them as of right now. So again, this is why preparation becomes so important, because you have to start doing your due diligence, because you're going to be scrambling a little bit as you get closer to the date. So what are the things, what are the features of the current products you already have in your portfolio? What are some things that you feel like you should be using more optimally? What are the products where you know there's features that you just haven't used for various reasons? I would hone in on those products, those features specifically, and find the session that talks about, and perhaps it could be a case study of an organization that had a lot of success utilizing those features already. I would send my organization, I would send time in those sessions. Then I would look at what are some products we're actually interested in, right? And I would plan around having people go to those sessions to learn about new. But here's the part that's really important. I would recommend reaching out to your sales rep and ask them, before you even give them your perspective, I would ask them to give you their perspective. Where should I be going based on your perceived understanding of our relationship, because it puts a little bit of pressure on that sales rep to actually know and understand what your needs are. And through that pressure, it's going to start to set the right mentality, which long stream will be the renewal negotiation. So ask them the question. Now, it's interesting, if they come back and the majority of things on the list are new products, it also kind of starts showing the mindset. The mindset is they want to use it to sell you stuff. And that's okay. It's always important to learn about what you could potentially use, but more importantly, the 75% of the list should be more about how can I actually get more value out of the products I've already committed to. So again, ask your sales rep for their perspective. Build your own internally. Come up with the plan. And then the last piece, and this is important, have a plan in place for after Dreamforce within your organization. Have a list of questions that you would like individuals to go answer. Have that as a meeting to take place so there can be a learning. And by the way, I would recommend having your sales rep attend that meeting. Have them be a part of the discussion so that they can actively learn what you took away, good or bad. So in terms of, if you're starting to think about renewal, how can you use Dreamforce to actually prepare or start to create leverage for that renewal? So let's say it's 6 months out, 9 months, or even a year out. You should absolutely use your time at Dreamforce in that regard. In other words, start building leverage, start preparing, start using it for part of your story later when you try to negotiate. So here's a couple things. If you're an organization that has a low-level relationship with Salesforce, right, account rep level, and you're not at the regional VP or the area VP level, they're gonna be there. So what I would recommend is reaching out to that area, that account rep, right? Reach out to them and say, look, love our relationship. I know we're gonna meet. I know you want me to meet for coffee or networking. I get it. We're gonna do that. But I'd like you to introduce me to the area vice president. I'd like you to introduce me to the regional vice president. I'd like to start having a discussion with them. I'd like to get to know them a little more. They'll be there, I assume. I'd also then ask them, I'd like to meet the counterpart on the product side of the business. So non-sales. I'd like to start having a relationship, at least an introduction to the person who is on the product side, the senior level person, the person behind the actual product. So I would use Dreamforce to start brokering or making those introductions because they're appropriate. And it's those relationships, as you start to develop them in that setting, you can call upon later when you have to start talking about the renewal, when you have to start talking about some flexibility like in the contract, when you'd like to need to start talking about pricing even. I'm not suggesting you do that at Dreamforce. It's just let's use Dreamforce to start brokering or creating those relationships. The second thing when you're at Dreamforce is I'd really pay attention. I'd really pay attention to and ask questions of the speakers that happen to be at companies that are similar to yours. Right? I really ask them, how do you, I mean, I understand you must like your Salesforce relationship because you're here, but ask them, like not ask, don't get into the specifics of their contracts, but just ask them about the day-to-day relationship. And here's the thing, if they start talking about, hey, you know what, Salesforce, they've come in, they've been proactive, they really understand what we need, they've really made some investments in the relationship, they've really always done right by us, that's great. Now, if that's not what's happening for you, it gives you a piece, a nugget, to go back to that area vice president that you just met and said, hey, look, we know that relationship type exists because we've been talking to many of your customers. My hope is it doesn't require me to agree to become a speaker for us to have that type of relationship as well. So again, it's all about getting information. It's all about using Dreamforce to learn, but then thinking in the back of your mind about what you eventually need to do later to make the right relationship. And here's the last point. As you're at these meetings around new products, ask a lot of questions too. Well, what happens if this doesn't prove to be valuable, right? Start putting your questions out there in the open now so that they're not questions later that may feel like a procurement exercise where you're challenging everything. No, they're valid questions that you have, and that's what they're coming from. It's not a negotiation. I was asking these questions 6 months ago at Dreamforce. And by the way, I haven't got an answer yet. You haven't shown me. You haven't asserted any type of position that makes me feel comfortable more so than I did 6 months ago. So that's a problem. So it's understand why I'm reluctant to add that product into a contract right now. You haven't gotten over that hurdle, and I raise it as a concern way before sales cycle discussions, right? So let's focus. It allows you to focus their attention and reminding them that you've been voicing this concern for a long time. It's not because you're pushing back on price. No, it's not about price. It's, I need to understand where the value is, and let's get over that hurdle first, and you haven't done it yet. So it's setting the stage early on, and the appropriate time is when they're talking to you about the features out of the gate.